Can you tell us about your new play, Takeaway?
Yeah, so Takeaway is a family comedy drama set in Toxteth here in Liverpool. And it's set in a takeaway shop called Hilton's, and it's run by Carol Hilton and her two daughters, Shelley and Browning. And it's a family drama about the different generations of British Caribbean people and what it means to be a first generation person raising second generation kids and what that looks like. And at the same time as this family is discovering who they are to each other, they're grieving the loss of their father, or husband, and the world around them is changing as well. So like many of our communities up and down the country, internationally, some of our spaces are, under threat. Every day there's a new article about this centre or this space or these pictures that are being taken over or taken back into control by someone else that removes it from being a place or a facility that the community uses. So they're experiencing that as well. There are some football pitches right next door to them that are under threat. They're going to build some new fancy pitches on it, and they've got different views on that as well and what the community needs or doesn't need. So it's all of these things packed into this mix of drama and comedy and family and love and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's a really it's been beautiful seeing audiences experience it, and it's like a real mixture of big belly laughs 1 minute to like the silence of hearing the words that are coming out of these performers' mouths. So yeah, that's Takeaway.
You know what? It sounds amazing, because I always say this, but we need more plays, but specifically Caribbean plays. I don't see enough of it.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we do see it, which I refuse to go and watch them now, it's usually things that are about our suffering rather than other things, like real life stuff that are happening every single day.
I feel really strongly about the way that we tell those stories, and like being able to tell stories that are full of like joy and love, and welcoming people into that as well. And I think you could probably hear my voice. I grew up in London, but I've been living here for 9 years now, and it feels really important to me to also be able to tell stories about our communities outside of London as well. That, of course, there are similarities culturally, but also being able to tell stories about Black communities around the country feels really important to be doing in regional theatres like this.
Totally agree with you. I was actually going to ask you if you're going to say you don't have a Liverpudlian accent, but
yeah, I'm not going to try. I get cancelled.
But I always think that there is, when it comes to theatre, especially when it comes to our stories, you're absolutely right. Regional theatre doesn't always get those stories sent to them. It's usually about other things. And I think it's important because we are scattered amongst all over the UK, but also it's good for other people to, see us more, because that's where we belong. Our stories belong on stage.
Thank you. Agree. And also who gets to tell those stories, having this incredible creative team of Black artists make this story, felt really important. And loads of our cast, all bar one, are incredible Scouse actors who, for various reasons haven't done loads of work in Liverpool. So being able to be in a position where they're telling their story that they identify with and that they feel strongly about on a stage in their home city has been, it's been a real privilege to be a part of that.
I was going to ask you what inspired you to write Takeaway and how the story came to life.
Do you know what? I wrote Takeaway. I wrote the very first draft of Takeaway about 10 years ago. And I wrote it because I was living in Nottingham at the time. And I went to get some food and I went to Takeaway, and I was just watching this family operate for a little bit. And these are spaces that we all know, and do you know what I mean? But there was something, I don't know, I can't remember exactly what it was, but there's something about watching this family operate that I felt really interested in. And I just went home and started writing. And I was writing it was pure character stuff. There was no story to it. I was just exploring who these characters were. And then from that, I just realized that this was the perfect setting to explore all of the conversations that we have within our families or within our communities, or all the conversations that we don't have but maybe should have within our families and communities. This just felt like the perfect setting and space for it. And then sort of did a couple scratches of it, and then it's just sort of been sat there. And then more recently, when I moved up to Liverpool, I was working with a producer in really early stages of they read the script and they were really interested in it and wanted to see what it looked like on screen. So we started like playing around with what the screen version of it could be. That hasn't gone anywhere yet. But then that was the time when it relocated to Liverpool, and I'd been here for some years, and we started to really think about that, what this story meant in Liverpool, which is recognisable across the country, but is actually also very specific to this place. That was the original inspiration, but then the inspiration now, I suppose, and the inspiration to bring it to stage at the moment, particularly in this city, is that, you know, this is a city with such a rich cultural history and presence. And it's an incredible storytelling city with some incredible storytellers. I'm biased, but I really genuinely believe that Liverpool is the best storytelling city in the country. Any story that Scouser tells you is gripping. It's like the most perfectly formed, structured story just from like a regular conversation. So being able to tell this story here felt really powerful, because often when we think of representations of Liverpool, this isn't what we see, but this is, you know, it's one of the oldest Black communities in Europe, but still that isn't the story that is told about Liverpool. So yeah, it felt really important to be able to put this story front and center on this stage in a package that is like really recognizable and really Liverpool and all the rest of the things, but it just centers, importantly, this Black family in this shop.
I know you said to me earlier that the audiences are laughing and just like really taking it in and enjoying it. When people leave Takeaway, what's the one feeling or thought you hope stays with them?
I think it's just the feeling of joy and pride. I think that's the thing that feels most important to me, is that people walk out of the theatre feeling joyful because they've been given joy on that stage, and they feel proud that this thing is existing in this time in the city. So I think, yeah, that's the thing that I want people to take away from it. In terms of like story and conversations that they have, like brilliant. Like I hope it sparks conversation, and I'm not precious about what that conversation is or where it leads. I want it to spark conversation, but I don't want to prescribe what that is. But just that feeling of joy and pride, that feels really important to me.
Which is important, because I think it's always nice when you go to theatre and leave with joy, because a lot of plays could leave you feeling very sad. So it's nice to have that kind of shift, especially when the world is so sad.
The world's tough, man. The world's tough. It's grim, everything, do you know what I mean? You can't avoid it sometimes. Things just pop up on your phone that you never asked to pop up on your phone, do you know what I mean?
I know.
So yeah, just having some space for that joy in a communal setting, like with other people, do you know what I mean? To be in an audience of people that are also experiencing that joy with you at the same time, I think is a really powerful thing.
I totally agree. So Takeaway obviously blends food, family, gentrification, grief. There's like loads of different things bubbling up. Was there any challenges with making these themes come to life?
I think like as many challenges as there are in any creative process, I suppose, or like thinking about what should exist in this story and what shouldn't exist in that story, and like what that balance is. I think that's always a challenge. And, you know, like a piece of work is never done. If I had 5 more weeks, then you'd see a completely different show at the end of it. So, you know, that is, you're always thinking about how it can improve and how you can tell the best story possible. But I think the main thing for me that I wanted out of this process was like a proper connection to people in the city, which it feels like we've been able to do in like a really meaningful way. And, you know, like today, just, you know, downstairs now, a local Takeaway Raggers is setting up because they're doing a pop-up in the theatre every week, so people can come and buy some food from Raggers before they go and see the show. And we've got a really beautiful exhibition up by a local photographer called Julian, who goes by the name Did I Shutter, who went and photographed loads of different takeaways and their families and the families that run them locally, that is up in the space now. We've got some t-shirts being sold from a local organisation called Kumba Amani, which are all about Liverpool 8 and L8 not hate, I think is the slogan of the t-shirts. So like all of that stuff that feeds into something that is more than the play. I think that was like the biggest challenge, but like the best possible outcome is actually working really hard to make sure that it feels connected to the city.
It's almost like saying, not, you know, screw you, gentrification, but in a way it is, because you're getting local communities where you're getting, you know, Caribbean takeaway photos and just things that are not gentrification heavy. It's things that were there before and will always be there.
Completely. And I think like when we look at buildings like this and like, you know, big theatre buildings that can sometimes look daunting and scary, like I think it's really important for us to remember that they are like they're civic spaces. They're spaces for people to. We're subsidised theatre. We're supported by public money. You know, they're spaces for people to come together and share in their local community. So yeah, as much as we always can with all of our work going forward, making sure that we feel like very much an important part of life and culture in Liverpool feels really important. And we can only do that by connecting with people in a way that feels real and meaningful.
Going back to your characters, very intrigued by these different characters, especially because I'm Caribbean. I've always gone to Caribbean takeaways, and so I know these characters so well. If you had to choose one character and you had to give them one piece of advice that might change the path of the play, what would it be and why?
Oh, I think I would give the piece of advice to Browning.
Okay.
And I think the advice would be know and appreciate your power. I think that would be my piece of advice.
Who is Browning? Without giving any.
Browning is one of the sisters, and I think for me, Browning is probably kind of like stealthily the driver of the show, because she is the one. She's the glue, I suppose. And I think there's something about her being able to step in earlier and appreciate that her voice has power and that people love and respect her. I think she could have potentially alleviated a lot of the tensions by speaking her truth earlier on and not being quiet or following all of the rules that maybe it felt like she was supposed to follow. But if she just trusted that she was important to the people around her and that people really valued her and would listen to her, she could have made a big difference.
Life advice, isn't it, really? Because we just need to realize our value and listen to others.
Yes, agree, and shake off all of that imposter stuff, man. Everyone's an imposter, in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. I wake up as an imposter. So going back to audiences and plays, is there a part in the play that you're most proud to share with your audience? And if so, what is that section?
There's a moment at the end of the first act where Shelley sort of lays out some home truths, and there's been this like ongoing thing throughout the first act about the way that Shelley talks to her mum, which for lots of people will be recognizable as there's no way that you can talk to your mum in that way. But she does, and like it's fun. Like when we have big audiences of Caribbean people in that space, like you hear the responses to the way that she talks to her mum sometimes. Like they're vocal. Of course, we're vocal. It's like, Rod, what? So you hear all of that, and there's this moment where she just sort of lays it out, and she's like, we don't talk, we don't communicate honestly with each other. And at that moment, the auditorium just goes silent, and people just listen to her. All these people that have been ready to take off their slippers and give her a whack are all of a sudden silent, and they're listening to her, and you can feel that they're hearing it, and they're assessing it and taking it and internalizing it in whatever way feels right for them. And so I'm really proud of that moment where you feel people are receiving whatever it is that's coming through that stage.
Of course, because they are so believing in the character, which shows that the character has been written and developed so well, because you only react, don't you, out loud, especially when you are really deeply relating and understanding that character. If you could package up the play as a takeaway meal, what would be inside of the box?
It would be the four words. It would be like oxtail and rice and peas with some plantain on the side, and maybe like a little bit of coleslaw stuck in there as well, and then maybe a little festival on the side as well. It's packed. To the top, so the lid doesn't close. The lid doesn't. No. You've got to cling from up, and even in it's leaking.
You've got your hats on double things. So not only you're a writer, but you're also artistic director for Liverpool Everyman. How Takeaway reflects your vision for the theatre in the city. I know you touched on it before.
Yeah, I think the thing that Takeaway does that I'm really proud of is that it is a big, fun, local story that asks big, massive questions, but in a way that feels loving and accessible. And I think that kind of, in some ways, captures my vision for the way that I see, or the way that I hope that we interact with audiences in our community in Liverpool. And this is my first year, so I joined full time in December. So now is like the time to like really see how we can be useful and interesting for people. And then I'm going to take this year to soak it all in and figure all of that stuff out, see how people react, and then come back and reassess. But I think the main thing for me is about, having big open doors that welcome conversations from all across our city.
How did you get into one, writing, but two, also this is a big role, creative director. What was like your path to get into this role? Because I know you said you're new to it. So I'm just now, I want to know, I want to learn.
Like at school, I was just a clown. So when you're a clown at school, they tell you to go on stage and do something. So I did that, and then obviously, when I didn't come from like a massive theatre going family, not for any reason other than that, like it just wasn't their thing necessarily. Which is funny, now my mum probably goes to the theatre more than I do. But so in my head, like the way to be a part of that was to be on stage and to be acting. That's kind of all that I saw. So I thought I was going to be an actor, and then I clocked that I probably wasn't good enough to be an actor, and I could only really play myself, and that wasn't going to get me very far. So I did. So I went to uni. I knew I wanted to go to uni. I thought I was going to go to uni and study business, but then I realised that I really didn't want to do that. So I went to Leeds, and I went to just see their theatre, and then sort of pivoted and applied for that course. Not really knowing what it was that I was getting into, and then I suppose since then, I like lots of it has just been learning on the job. So I'm really been really lucky and feel really grateful to be able to work with some brilliant artists and learn from them. Doing lots of work with young people and different community work. So when I was still in London, I was teaching a BTEC in performing arts for young people that had been excluded or couldn't access mainstream schooling for whatever reason. And I was doing like after school clubs at the same time. Then I moved up to Nottingham for a while to work at the Nottingham Playhouse as a part of their participation team, and was developing new youth theatres and directing youth theatre shows. And then I think it was probably then that I started writing as well, mainly not because I saw myself as a writer, but because I wanted stuff to direct. To start writing little things like, no one else is going to give me a job, I'll give myself a job in it. And then so continued doing that, which then inviting people to see my work, who would then invite me for conversations about making work with them, which was great. And then I moved up to Liverpool to work with a company called 20 Stories High, who make work with and for young people and also make professional touring work, which was sort of like the most perfect meeting of those two worlds for me. So while I was with them, I got to make loads of wonderful work with their youth theatre. I also got to make, I suppose, my first professional show as a writer, which is a show about young boys in the football academy system, which I wrote and directed. And then from that, got other writing opportunities. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'm allowed to call myself a writer now if people are like asking me and paying me to write. So yeah, carried on writing, like new plays, devised work, I did an adaptation of a book. So that's sort of where that craft came from. And I guess because I was always sort of like a director first, I sort of had that dramaturgical brain, and that was my access to it, is working as a director with writers on their work. Then I suppose that was kind of my training to write work for myself as well. Sort of like gigging freelance director across the country. So then I got to work with some really brilliant venues and partners and meet people and meet other artistic directors or creative directors and like understand the way that their role worked. And then I was the artistic director at the National Student Drama Festival for a couple of years, which was my first leadership role in the arts. So then got to understand what it meant to be running a business, a creative business. And then Liverpool has been home for the past 9 years. So then when this opportunity came up and I was like connected and a part of that artistic community here, it just felt like the right time. And they agreed, luckily. So boom, here I am.
It's such an interesting, like, all the steps that you took, but they all make sense. It's all kind of leading to where you are now. And you said something that I totally agree when you said, sometimes you have to create the opportunities for you. You have to you wrote your own stories because it's hard.
It is hard. And it's hard. And it's a difficult industry to find your way into anyway, isn't it? But like, I guess and it's also a different time now. So I feel different when I talk to younger artists or artists that are entering the industry now. I sort of have to check myself about the conversations I'm having with them about the way that I did it and what's open for them now. So like when I first moved to Liverpool, I moved here because 20 Stories High were a part of this program, this massive program of work called the Artistic Directors Leadership Program, which is about getting more global majority people into leadership positions. So I came as their associate director under that scheme, and there were 4 of us in different organizations across the country. But then there was like a cohort of 30 of us who were going through this leadership program, who are all doing like incredible things in the industry now, as a result of, or partly as a result of that program. And you sort of look around and go, actually, the money isn't there for those sort of programs at the moment. So it's, it's easy for me to be like, yeah, just find a way. But equally, I know that the landscape's different, and the funding landscape is different, so it's hard. We love it. We do it because we love it, and we know that it's important, and we know that it makes a difference, and we always want to fight for better.
100%. I totally agree with you. I have one more question in terms of takeaway, which is, if you had to describe takeaway in 3 words, what would it be? It would be joyous, loving, and delicious. Joyous, loving, delicious. Yeah, I had to get a food side in there. You have to. You've got to. At least we know it's delicious. We also know that if it was in a box, it'll be white rice, plantain, coleslaw. Yeah, it's full up. I've got some quick fire questions for you. So it's the first thing that comes to your head. Cool. Okay. First one is your favorite theatre space. Everyman. I knew you were going to say. Your favorite theatre show that you've watched in your whole life? In my whole life? Oh, Red Velvet. I've never heard of Red Velvet. It was with Adrian Leicester at the Kiln, who was then the Tricycle Theatre, and Indu directed it. Yeah, beautiful play. Dream guest, someone you would like to come and watch your play. They can be dead or alive. Listen, I'm John Barnes to see the play, and I'm an Arsenal fan, and John Barnes is a Liverpool legend. But like John Barnes is like everyone's uncle in it, so I can't lie. I was having to restrain myself. I was so gassed that John Barnes was sitting there watching the play. So it's happened. It's happened. You got your dream guest. Your proudest career moment to date. The opening night of Takeaway. And my last one is the person who's had the greatest impact on your career so far. I think my mum. The support of my mum, and the belief of my mum has been massive and huge. Mums really can just make such a huge difference to your life, of course, to your dreams. Yeah, everything. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is really hard, and she talked through it, or like, I'll do a show and I'll send her the bad reviews and she'll pass out the review on me. Always the number one fan. Oh, yeah. She just has like, when you walk into her house, she just has like loads of different show posters from shows that I've done in like the hallway. It's like, I don't even have that in my house. Or, do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's gorgeous. Nathan, thank you so much for talking to me today.